Rob, this is like the weirdest Christmas ever. What exactly are you unwrapping there?
So this is the best Christmas ever for a green woodworker. So Rex and I rove this out. I think you guys probably saw the last video. And then I went to my shop and started practicing on a piece of riven oak that I had that was a little dry, and it was not fun. So I called up Rex and said, hey man, you might want to wrap this stuff up to keep it nice and wet. And he did an amazing job. I don't know if you guys probably can't see this, but there's actually water vapor inside this. So this has been sealed up really nicely. There's still some, it's been sitting on his shop floor, and there's actually like a little bit of ice on the bottom of it from the cement floor, but you can feel it's still wet. So he did a great job. That's gonna make today's tasks a lot easier.
And we did this for a month now. It's been about 4 weeks since we got together last. I know some of the old timers would put them in a tub of water. And I don't have a big tub, and it freezes in here, so I really don't want to do that. Yeah. So, this was a low-tech solution that worked out pretty well, just some cheap shrink wrap.
Yeah, I have a friend who will tie a string to him and throw him in his pond and just let him sit there.
Amazing. That's low tech.
Yeah.
All right, lay it out for us. What are we going to start doing today?
So today we're going to take this riven piece of wood and we're going to make it nice and square first, and then we're going to put a taper on it, and then we're going to octagonalize it.
Oh, you know what? What part of the chair are we making?
Oh, we're making the front post.
Okay, the front post. So people would call that a leg. Chair makers call it a post, but most folks would call that a leg. So we're going to make a front leg.
And so the thing to remember about starting out like this is just the orientation of the wood. And so there's the ray plane. So the rays of a piece of oak or ash or ring porous species are going to go this way towards the center radially. And then there's the growth ring plane, which is this way. It's a little bit hard to see. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the growth ring plane is going this way, and the ring plane is going this way.
And the ray plane, people would know if they've used quarter sawn lumber before. Mm-hmm. The faces of quarter sawn lumber are radial grain. That's the ray plane. That's why it shows ray flex in it, right?
Correct.
So if you've used quarter sawn before, you're familiar with the radial surface. That would be the big, flat, broad surface of a quarter sawn board.
So I'm just looking at this. It's a little bit, there's a little bit of curved grain here on this end, but that's okay. We'll make this the tapered end, and we'll take that off. And you can see, here's my guide, and I've got plenty of room there. This is 1.5. The final is 1 3/8. So even rough, I've got plenty. It's a little bit tight here, but we can probably make that work. So next step is going to be to put this bad boy on the shave horse and get shaving. Okay, so we're going to start draw knifing this piece. I'm going to tell you sort of why I picked this one to start with. It's a little small, but I think we can get a decent piece out of it. And the thing is, if we mess up, then we just have to do it over with a bigger piece and have more fun. So, but the nice thing about picking a smaller piece, and the reason to do it to start with, is because you're going to have to take off a lot less material, which makes it easier for you. And we'll know pretty quick whether or not it's going to work out. So what I'm doing here, so you can see that there is a nice square edge there, and some pretty flat faces. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this flat face, you can see the ray flex on it, and I'm going to put it down first, and then I'm going to shave this side flat and parallel to this, and then we're going to flip it to the other side and shave. So the flat side is down on the shaving bench, and just holding my draw knife, and I like to do it like this, like you're rowing, and you can see how, oh my God, I wish you guys could feel this. This is such a pleasure to work. It's so smooth and soft, and it's got these nice big shavings coming off of it. And you see how easy that was, and I'm pretty much got a flat surface already.
So it's definitely still green. That wrapping
Yeah.
worked.
Oh my God, yeah. And I'm holding it, I'm canting it, so I get a longer cut, just like you would on a plane when you tilt your plane and get a longer blade length on it. And then, so.
We got a fat end there.
Yeah, we have a fat end. But you can see it's already getting flat and parallel. And then I'm just going to put it in here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to gradually work it down.
And you're on that radial surface.
Right.
Real quick, Rob, can we explain which draw knife we picked and why?
It's your draw knife.
I know, but I have 7. Why did we pick this one?
We picked this one for a couple of reasons. It's curved this way, as you can see. That makes it a little easier to use than a straight blade. It's also, is it cambered? Not really. It's bevel up. I don't have a preference one way or the other. I think whatever's comfortable for you. I don't know, what else?
I only know from reading that I think chair makers favored bevel up because then the back of it is flat and it lends itself towards making straight lines.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure there was chair makers that did it the opposite way. So it's whatever gear you have, you can probably make it work.
I wonder what Chester Cornett did.
Something crazy.
I think what makes the most sense is to just flip it back and forth. That's what I like to do. And we're just about there. It's got a little bit of a sway in it.
Are you looking for flat? Is that what you're going for? So one
Flat.
flat surface.
Yeah, flat and parallel. And about the right size. So we're getting close. See, we're already there in the middle. And on the ends, we're tight. So this is our rough dimension, 1.5, and then 1 3/8 is our smaller, that's our finish. So we're gonna get it to rough, we're gonna square it, get it rough first at 1.5, and then we're gonna take a little bit down on each side and keeping it square. If you watch people that are really good at this, they'll take a ton of material off really quickly, especially at this stage. But I'm not that bold. I'm good pretty much on 3 sides at this point. And I'm gonna just take this remaining side that's rough, I'm gonna take it down to my 1 3/8 thickness there. I've got a little bit of curve on this side, and I'm almost there on this end, right there, but I got plenty on this end. So I'm gonna start on the thick end and just remove a fair amount of material fairly quickly. So you can see how fast that can go.
Hey, I have a question. Isn't it dangerous pulling that razor-sharp blade right towards your stomach like that? Aren't you going to hurt yourself?
It's hard to hurt yourself because to hurt yourself, you'd have to bring your hands back behind your thorax. So it's harder to hurt yourself than you would think, but still be careful because this is razor sharp. The other thing that you can do to avoid that is you can keep your arms straight and lean back. But as you can see, there's not a whole lot of distance here for me to do that. So I'm going to keep going, just getting this down to my 1 3/8. I'm about an 1/8 inch, maybe a quarter off. And I'm going to take this end, flip it, and do the same thing. So now I've got a reference point right here about where my depth should be. And remember, on this side, I don't want to take a whole lot off because I'm almost at my final size on this end.
I see you using some short, controlled strokes there, just where it's thick.
Right. I don't want to get a huge chip, pick up a huge chip way up here, and then the draw knife's going to tend to dive, and then I'm leaning back, and before you know it, I'm popped off a 1/4 inch chip.
And then your piece is ruined instantly.
I can't afford that down here. Up there, I can be more aggressive.
So we're nearly done with this piece, but you just showed me a pretty cool technique for seeing if it's straight and flat.
So you're going to look down it, but you can also just take it and rest it on the floor and see if there's a gap, which there is a little bit in the center.
Yeah, I see it. It's so much like using the side of your plane when you're trying to board.
Or your bench top. I mean, it only works when you got a flat floor.
I put this floor in, and I'll have you know it's flat-ish.
But if you're outside, like Chester, in your driveway or something, it's not going to work quite so well. But so I'm looking down it now. There's a bit of a hump here. I'm going to take that out. Bit of a hump on the other end, too. The other thing you can do is you can get a square and do it that way.
Here's a nice traditional one.
So here's my flat surface. You can see I'm high over here. And then kind of in the middle, it's just like you would do with a board. So I'm going to take off material over on this side. Now it's a little bit tricky because you're not guaranteed that your side down here is flat, so you have to kind of pay attention to that. Now I'm going to flip it, and remember, now the material I'm going to want to take off is on the right-hand side. And actually on this side, it was a little more in the middle. So let's see if I'm closer. Yeah, I'm definitely closer than I was. We're down to our rough thickness on this end, and the reason I know is because I take this tool here that's been marked at 1 3/8, just my rough, and it slides right on. So, but as I start to move it, I can't move it. So that means it's only the first inch is good, and then the rest I need to take some more material off.
Now what I'm going to do is just what you did. I'm going to take this piece of stock and I'm going to get it square and straight. I want to start off on the radial grain, which is this surface here. So I'm going to start by squaring up this piece of radial grain, and that'll be a reference face, just as if I was working on a table leg. Is that right so far?
Yep, exactly.
So I'll start with that, and then you were saying off camera a minute ago, you should have done yours a little bit more in stages, so get the whole thing to 1 1/2, and then take the whole thing down to 1 3/8. Yep. But you haven't done this in 10 years, you said?
Right.
So you're not allowed to beat yourself up. And also, that way, no one will judge me. Wow, you weren't kidding.
That worked nice.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing how nice it works. So now I started a flat surface here, and now my goal is to continue that flat surface all the way up. And I've definitely got some wonky grain and even a tiny knot here. So this could be a little bit of an adventure. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's nice and flat, and then I've got a little hump. Oh, that's so much better. I forgot to rotate that thing. And then you told me when we first started working together to put leather on it, and I did that, and boy, what a difference.
Yeah, it really
grips so much better
much
now.
Nicer.
Not bad. Okay, so that's one ray plane, and now what I need to do is get the tangential plane 90 degrees to it.
Yeah, I would mark that.
So I know, and so I don't go back and mess it up.
Right.
Now, looking at this here, it bows this way. I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna do this end and leave the middle mostly alone. Let's see what happens.
And this piece is a little bit deceiving too, because it looks really big, and it is to start out with, and we rove off a little bit of it, and then we hewed off some of it. But because the grain is not totally straight, Rex is going to have to take off a lot of material. So
now I'm using a technique here that I read about, and then I kind of taught myself a little. To get a good shaving, I'm going kind of on the corner, a little canted, kind of on the other corner, a little canted, and then just in the middle. When you have a broad surface like this, it's pretty hard to draw knife the whole surface if you're trying to go down. So I'm kind of experimenting here. A lot of these techniques are sort of new to me. Tell you what, working dry lumber is never like this.
no.
Nothing cuts like this. So after a little bit more work, I've got a reference face here that I like, and I worked this tangential surface. We started radial, and now we're tangential, and now I got the square, and it's definitely, look, right off the end. It's definitely square-ish. It doesn't have to be more than that, because as we discussed, we're doing this in stages. I'm going for the 1.5 thickness right now. So there's no reason to get too crazy. I'm going to keep removing material. This is like working on a board in flat work. I have reference face, reference edge. Now I'm going to bring these rough surfaces down to it. So I'll put the other radial surface up, and I'm high on this side. So I'll bring that down. Get that looking pretty square, pretty flat. Good. Rotate. Because I rotated, the high side is to my right now. Okay, so now reference radial face, 90-degree tangential face, parallel radial face. I've got one more face to go. It's not surprising. This is very wonky. There's a lot of bow in it. So as I go to get to work on this, I'm really going to focus in the middle, because I can't really go below these ends. This end is already like, yeah. It's a good thing we're tapering it, because we're already below 1.5 inches. I really need to stay away from that corner. And I'm running against the grain a bit here, but I do find with the draw knife, it gives me more freedom to work against the grain than like a hand plane would. It's a little bit freer. There's more danger, but it's flexible.
I think the fact that the wood is green also helps with that.
It's so much more forgiving. It's not tearing out the way I would expect. Okay, so now my piece is generally square, and I've got 4 square sides. Now what I want to do is work each side down gently until that 1.5 gauge goes over it.
Right. And I would try, you want to lose as much of that knot as you can. That's going to have to be your tapered end. But if your reference face is where your palm just was, is that there, and then what's your other reference face? Your other reference face should be that one, yeah. So mark that, because you're going to want to take all of your material off of the side where the knot is.
So after a bit more work, now I've got the 1.5 marker that goes on all over. So I've got basically a reference face and a reference edge, even though it's square, and the 1/2 inch fits everywhere. So now I'm going to keep my 2 reference faces, but work down my 2 opposing faces until the 1 3/8 goes on. And now that I've said this, I'm going to check with Rob. Rob, did I just say that right?
Yes.
Excellent. So now I'm going to do some more work, and we'll get back with you when this is completely 2-dimensional. All right, so Rob, we have 2 front posts, which people might call legs if they're not chair builders. We made them square, we took them down to 1.5 inches, and then we took them down to 1 3/8 inches. And just now you took your chair stick, which gives you lengths, and you used that to get the overall length of these front posts, and you cross-cut them to their final length. So now we've got 1 3/8 square posts, cross-cut to length. What's our next move?
We're gonna taper the bottom 5.5 inches of this post, this front post. So I chose the lower quality end to taper because I'm going to take material off that end. And I take my chair stick right here, and you notice the chair stick, there's a mark right here, and then there's a taper like that tells you where the taper is going to be. So you just put this on here. So I'm just going to mark this taper right here. And then run a line all the way around. So my taper is going to start here and end here. This is 1 3/8 square here, and I want it to be 1 inch square final. So I need to take 3/16 off of each side. So I'm going to subtract 3/16 from 1 3/8, and I'm going to get 1 3/16. What I like to do, some people will set it at 3/16 and go all around. I find you don't get it's harder to register those small distances, so I set it to do the opposite side. So I'm marking this side like that.
And this is just like tapering any furniture component. I've done this for a shaker table. I've done it for all sorts of projects in dry wood. It's the same thing, but with a shave horse and a draw knife.
Probably what you don't want to do is, remember, you're taking off hardly any material up here at the base of the taper, and then at the end of the leg, you're taking off the most material. So I like to do 1/3, 1/3, 2/3, 1/3. You don't want to start up here and then try to pull more material off. You want to start at the bottom, pull material off, then start up a little bit higher, pull more off, a little bit higher, pull more off, a little bit higher, pull more off. Same thing, and just work your way up. 1, 2, and that'll give you a nice, even, straight line from here to here.
You know, you were saying to me before to get the stock more on the platform so it's better supported.
Yeah, that's a good point. So there it is. There's my taper. And then I'm going to switch to the opposite side.
Now, are we tapering one end or 2 ends?
One end.
And this is the end that goes on the floor. These are the feet.
Correct. These are the feet.
So once we've completed this taper, that's all the tapering for this piece.
Correct.
And Rob, now that both pieces have one end tapered, the end that's going to be on the floor, what's the next step?
Next, we're going to octagonalize. And this is a pretty intuitive step, actually. All we're going to do, so the thing about octagonalizing is keeping it even is the hard apart. It's easy to sort of twist it. It's easy to make the piece into a twist or sort of auger it. So what we're going to do is we're just at rough intervals, couple inches. We're going to take and put a line across our piece like this. And then we're going to do it down here as well. And what that's going to do is we're going to put those lines all the way around. Doesn't matter where the lines are. But as you start to take corners off of these edges here, the way you want the amount of graphite that's still on the leg to be even on all sides. And what this does is it allows you a nice, good gauge of how thick your taper is. Otherwise, it's hard to tell because the wood's all the same color. But if you can look at these lines, and one of these lines is really short up here and really wide up here, it means your taper's off. So, and you can do that with each side. So we're just going to bring it around, bring all these lines around, and they don't have to be right on each other, actually. You'll see in a second what I'm talking about. It's a little more intuitive once you see it.
I think I really get it. As long as the lines are the same length, your tapers are even.
Yeah, they should be the same length and they should be roughly in the middle, right? Because if they're the same length, but one's over here and one's over here and one's over there and one's over there, then you're also off. So it's a very simple and intuitive way to sort of gauge whether your tapers are straight and whether that you're taking the same amount off of each corner.
This is a super cool trick. I don't even remember reading this anywhere. So this is great.
It's actually in the book.
I wonder if it's in the original because I haven't read the updated one.
It's in the updated one too.
We should mention we're talking about Make a Chair from a Tree, which was originally published in the 70s. It's by Jennie Alexander. And here, can you show this to the camera? Yeah. And then Lost Art Press recently reissued it. And this is the original book.
Yeah, that's the book. Highly, highly recommend that you get it, along with the accompanying video, which is also from Lost Art Press. It's a reissue. I have the original 70s version of the book. So does Rex. It's a great book, but this is better because they've updated things. I think the pictures are better. There's more jigs in this. Also, what comes with this that's really nice is a PDF. They have a whole chapter in here on jigs. There's a PDF that comes with the book when you purchase it from Lost Art Press that you can print out, and it's measurements and guides to basically building guide to every single jig that they mention in the book. Super handy.
I think we should even say to people, anybody who wants to follow what we're doing in this video series, you probably shouldn't without buying the book.
Yeah.
These videos are not good enough by themselves.
No, absolutely.
We're documenting our process, but this isn't enough for you to follow the process.
Yeah, and the thing is like, you're going to see us do it, and I guess you can go back and forth in the video, but it's really nice to have the book as a reference because they very carefully describe every step. There's a lot of handy little tips in there. It's just, I can't say enough good things about that book.
Peter Follansbee has a course, an online course in building the Alexander Chair.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. So we'll make sure to link to that in the description of this video. And Peter's master of all sorts of this stuff, and he learned directly from Alexander. Yeah. So I'm sure his online course is like amazing.
Wow. All right, so very simple. All we're gonna do is I'm gonna cant and actually Rex has set this up to make it super easy for me because he has a notch in his shave horse in this head right here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but he's got
slide it in for us again.
He's got a notch right there, right? So it holds it at a 45-degree angle, which is the perfect angle for me to cut this octagon or this face. So another trick, I think this one isn't in the book, but I learned this from Drew, is what Drew will do is he'll take his finger, you gotta be careful because this thing's sharp, and put it right here and put that, and I've seen a lot of people do this. They'll do it with 2 fingers or 1 finger. They'll put their fingers right here to keep the knife centered on the piece and take an even cut. Let me see if I can demo this. It basically keeps you centered on the two faces that you're cutting. That might be a little difficult.
That was the advanced technique.
Yeah, that was you can do that when you're Drew Langsner technique. Another thing you can do, right here, this grain is starting to tear out, and I can reverse the draw knife and try to do it backwards. Wouldn't necessarily recommend this as a common practice, but in places where you got a little tough grain,
Hey, Rob,
do that.
can we jump in here? This is a Tracy Chavarant draw knife, and Tracy specifically makes these so they can be flipped to be pushed. So if you need to push, so it's a beveled down knife, and you can push that one, and it's a part of his.
Oh, yes, you can.
Yeah, so Tracy goes by Bastion Head, and we'll put a link to him too. I met him at a woodworking show a couple years ago, and he's definitely a buddy and somebody I respect a lot. And he made that knife,
nice.
And he's really pioneered a lot of push techniques on the shave horse with the draw
push
knife.
Or pull, or
you can push or pull.
Oh, wow, this is nice. So see, here the grain's starting to dive, so I'm going to turn it around.
Good, yeah.
Okay, and that's about as much as I want to take off right now. I'm going to come back here. So I'm only maybe, I got a 1/4 of an inch there, and then I'm just going to turn it. And I'm going to do the same thing here.
And people can see us now. We've got one beveled down draw knife and one bevel up draw knife. And what Rob's doing is he's just feeling his way through the work. Sometimes one tool works better, sometimes another one. We've got this reversing grain, so the Tracy Chavarant knife might be working a little bit better, especially because it's pushable. And then where Rob finds the grain reversing a little bit, he flips it around. And so you have to work with what's happening in front of you.
This is also a part where you want to really slow down, not be too aggressive. You saw before, you got all these huge chips, right? When we got a big chunk of wood and we can take a lot of material off of it, we can go fast and rip off big chunks. Don't want to do that here. You want to be real careful because it's real easy for the grain to dive on you and for you to just take out way too much. So just little bits, keeping the draw knife right on that plane. Now I've got some nice grain, so it's making me look like a hero because I've got real nice grain.
You look like a hero all the time. So can we show those pencil lines to folks here?
Oh yeah, so here's the pencil line. Actually, let's do it here.
I'd like to show this face because it's much better lit. No, I'd like to show the one like right there. Yeah, because it's got the light on it.
So this one, I've taken some off this corner, but not this corner. All right, so you can see that these lines, next time when I take this corner right here, these lines should stay in the middle and they should be about the same size all the way down. Okay, so you can see I didn't take a whole lot off. And these facets are really, these faces are still really fat. These are narrower, so I'm going to have to work my way down. But I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to go to the other side now and bring this all the way down. And it's tempting to start at the very bottom of this surface you've already established. Don't do that. Just take a little bit off the top, and you can come down to the end here. Remember that the taper, because this is narrower than this, the size, the width of your face here is going to be wider, and it's going to get smaller as you come down. If you make it super wide here, this is going to look really wonky.
Man, I'm really glad you said that because I wouldn't have thought about that intuitively.
I'm backing off as I get to the end. Wider here and backing off here. Now I can see that just wanted to dive, which is why you got to be careful. So I'm going to come back this way.
Now, let me ask a dumb question. Would this be a time to bring in a spoke shave?
No.
No, so why not? Because that seems like the perfect tool for this.
Because the spoke shave is not going to take off enough material. I love the spoke shave. It's one of my favorite tools. But you'll see when we get to spoke shaving, it just takes off a really tiny bit.
So it's still too slow for
too
this
slow.
work.
Yeah. And the other thing about a spoke shave is it's for rounding. And so it'd be real easy for you to, I think it would be, because you don't have as much of a surface area in contact with the wood, it'd be easier for you to round things over and get them off. I guess it would be, a better way to say that might be that it's harder to say straight on the piece with a spoke shave than it would be with a draw knife.
Well, Rob, how wide is our facet going to be when it's done?
They should be even on all sides.
But I mean, so all 8 sides are even. So we're starting very narrow, but we're going to progressively make them wider.
Exactly.
I see now.
So starting here, the marks, I can't see the ones that you guys are seeing, but the marks on this side are the same length and centered on the piece. And they should be all the way around. I see my marks are kind of disappearing on this side, but yeah, it looks like they are on all the sides. So now I'm just going to flip it and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to keep going.
Okay, so Rob and I have each made one front post or front leg for the chair. Rob, remind us the process we used for this. What did we start with?
So we started with a rough billet and we draw knife that square first. So we established a working face, working edge, and then we worked down to our final dimensions, which is 1 3/8. So we got it down to 1 1/2. Then we went from 1 1/2 to 1 3/8. So once it was square, then we cut it off to length, which I'm not sure what the length is because
it's on the stick.
Yeah,
we just used the stick.
Never measure when you can scribe.
And what we did is that stick, the complete length of that stick is the length of this leg. So we marked that, and then we just used my saw bench and a crosscut saw to just bring them down to final length. That was quick.
So we got it to length, and then the next step is we need to put a taper on the bottom end. So it's 5 1/2 inches, but again, we used our chair stick to mark it up from the bottom. And then the square at the bottom is a 1 inch square. So we took a marking gauge and we set it to 1 3/16, and we just marked our 1 inch square using that. And then we took a draw knife and we took each face from 0 at 5 1/2 inches to our final depth here, and tapered it on all 4 sides. And then we just took, the next step is octagonalizing, and we drew these marks across at random intervals, and then we just took the draw knife and shaved off the squares until these marks were even width all the way down, and each face was about the same width as all the others.
So now we have basically the 2 front posts of a chair, and we have all the stock we need to make all the other parts.
Yep.
So if you're wanting to follow along on a project like this, we highly recommend Make a Chair from a Tree. The Lost Art reissue is even better than the original. And then you're going to need some green woodworking tools. The shave horse has worked out pretty well for us. I would never say my shave horse is the best design out there, but I would say mine is easy to build and cheap. It doesn't use a lot of lumber, and it is working.
It's easy to adjust too, which actually is important for this because we went from pretty wide starting stock to thinner stuff. And just the ability to just take this ramp and move it back and forth to adjust the height makes it very easy on the fly to work on these pieces.
I just based it off the English Bodger's horse.
Yeah.
And at first we were having trouble getting thick stock into it because we forgot, I built this thing 3 years ago, I forgot that you can rotate the cross piece. So it's got a thicker and a thinner setting, and then it's notched out to hold round pieces like the leg, because I expected to use it for chair making. So I've got a complete set of plans on that and a build video that's very easy to follow. Also, I've got a pair of saw benches that we did a build on last year, and the saw benches, they both come in one set of plans, and it's really great to have low benches like this for green woodworking. Throughout this video, we kept all of our tools on this bench, which made things easy. You might be wondering why I have a C-clamp on the end of my leg, and it's because this one actually has a split in it, but it's close to the edge, and it's not very serious, so we just opened it up, dumped some CA glue in there, and I C-clamped it shut. And even with this green wood, I think the CA glue is going to hold fine, and it's not going to be a problem in the finished chair. Now that we have our front posts done, Rob, what's the next thing?
We're going to do rungs. And rungs
are
rungs
horizontals.
Same skills, same exact skills, except you don't need to taper the rung. So we're gonna take a rough billet, make it square, then we're gonna octagonalize it for the rungs. There's just a lot more rungs than there are posts.
How many rungs do we need?
Oh, geez, it's 3 per side times 4, so a dozen.
12 rungs. So we need 24 to make 2 chairs. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of rungs. So the nice thing about starting with the post is it's big stock, right? So it's easier to manage because everything's bigger. Once we get to the rungs, it's a lot smaller and it requires a little bit more fine adjustment.
So we learned a lot with these heavier components, and those skills will help us make the more delicate components.
Exactly.
And then with those rungs also, those need to be dry,
Right.
like bone dry. So do we need to build a kiln?
We do.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is an involved project, man.
Yes, it is.
So we're going to build a kiln probably out of styrofoam,
Right.
and we'll power it with a light bulb.
Right.
It'll be a very, very simple thing, and there's lots of plans for those. You can even build one now. You don't need us to show you how. Just find one and build it.
Yeah.
But we're going to do one of those too, and we'll make rungs and start drying our rung stock. One of the reasons these chairs work is because the posts are wet and the rungs are very dry. When you put a rung into a post and then the post dries over time, it clamps down on that rung and holds it incredibly tight. The old time guys didn't even use glue. We're going to use glue.
Yeah.
There's going to be glue in this chair. I'm going to use glue. You don't have to, but I'm going to do it. Yeah,
glue.
I'm going to use glue. So we've got, it's crazy. This is what, our 4th video?
Yeah.
And we have a long way to go. This is a big project. I think the first time. I think once you've made one, I think it gets a lot easier because then you've built all the stuff and you've been through it. But the first time through, this is a big undertaking.
Yeah.
And Rob and I were saying today, like, I've done a lot of flat work, and so has he. This is really different. It's not like making boxes or benches or stools. It's really different.
Yeah. I don't know how to. It's
Freeform in a way?
It's much more freeform. It's fun in the sense that look at all these shavings. I mean, you can just, really rip off this stuff, but it's easy. I think it's less controlled, so it's not like you have a plane or you're clamping things in a bench, a vise where everything's more controlled. This is much less controlled, which is, I think, makes it more fun, but also makes it more of a challenge.
You have to be responsible for more of it. The tools aren't keeping things flat and straight.
Yep.
And it's new to me, so I've had some very humbling moments where I'm like, oops, I just took off way too much material. Let's go get another billet.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to get used to that. It's not like other kinds of woodworking.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of the fun of it is if you mess it up, you just get to make another one.
There's a whole log out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to do that. Thanks to everybody who's been watching. We know these are long videos, and we appreciate you hanging out with us. And as long as you keep watching them, we're going to keep making them. So we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Take care.